Let's kick things off with a guy who said no to more money than most of us will see in 10 lifetimes combined. Robert Plant. After John Bonham died in 1980, Led Zeppelin called it a day. And ever since, promoters have thrown obscene amounts of cash at Plant just to get the band back together full-time. We're talking stadium tours, private jets, and buy your own island money. And every single time, the answer has been no.
Mine's a tale that can't be told. My freedom I hold dear.
Sure, there was that one night in 2007, the O2 reunion, and it proved the magic was still very much alive. Jimmy Page wanted more. Fans practically begged for more. Plant basically said, thanks, but I'd rather go make folk records with Alison Krauss instead, which, for the record, won a Grammy. Here's the thing, though. Imagine being so legendary that turning down a fortune becomes the most rock and roll move you could make. Most of us can't even turn down a free sandwich. Here's a question for you, Uncle. Who in their right mind voluntarily quits the Rolling Stones? Bill Wyman did. After more than 30 years holding down the bass, playing sold-out stadiums with the biggest rock band on the planet, Wyman looked around one day and decided he'd simply had enough. Not of the music, of the lifestyle, the endless tours, the chaos, the grind of being a Stone 24/7. So in the early 90s, while the band was still packing arenas, he walked. Just like that. He kept making music on a smaller scale, dabbled in photography, opened a restaurant, and turned down every opportunity to rejoin permanently. Meanwhile, Mick and Keith kept touring well into their 80s. You've got to wonder who actually won that trade. Wyman got his family time, his hobbies, his sanity. The others got the private jets and the knee braces. Sometimes the most legendary move in rock history is simply knowing when to get off. Next up, the man who had everything and simply walked away from it. John Deacon of Queen. After Freddie Mercury's death in 1991, Deacon stuck around just long enough for the tribute concert and a handful of later sessions, including the track No One But You in the late 90s. Then, quietly without any farewell tour, he was gone. While Brian May and Roger Taylor went on to tour with a rotating cast of singers, turning Queen into a stadium franchise, Deacon declined every invitation.
Radio goo-goo, radio gaga.
No interviews, no photos. Practically a ghost. Rumor has it he still quietly approves major business decisions from behind the scenes. Brian May himself has said Deacon simply wanted to leave that whole chapter behind him, which honestly might be the most punk rock thing a bass player has ever done. How exactly do you walk away from one of the biggest bands in history and never once look back? Here's a woman who might be the only rock legend who quit because she thought she was getting too old and never once changed her mind. Grace Slick of Jefferson Airplane and later Starship. Unlike most names on this list, nobody pushed her out. She made a fully conscious decision. Around the age of 50, she looked at the industry, looked at aging rockers squeezing into leather pants for one more tour, and basically said, not me, thanks. Rock, she famously argued, belongs to the young, and she had zero interest in becoming a walking nostalgia act.
Oh, but a parade of the fancy lion.
So she picked up a paintbrush instead and built an entirely new career as a successful visual artist. She's turned down reunion offers, turned down big paydays, and said repeatedly that she has absolutely no regrets. Honestly, compared to half the bands still limping through greatest hits tours in their 80s, Grace Slick might be the wisest person in rock history.
And you just had some kind of mushroom.
Try to imagine walking away from the biggest rock band on the planet because you'd rather have peace than fame. That's exactly what Izzy Stradlin did with Guns N' Roses. As the band exploded into global superstardom, Stradlin had already had enough of the chaos, the drugs, and the grinding tour schedule. So, in the early 90s, right at the absolute peak, he simply quit. No blow up, no tabloid meltdown, he just left and started a quiet solo career on his own terms. And here's the kicker. He wrote or co-wrote a huge chunk of the band's biggest songs, the ones still filling stadiums decades later. When Guns N' Roses finally reunited for that blockbuster tour, fans lost their minds hoping he'd show up, and Stradlin reportedly couldn't reach an agreement and simply passed. Still making music today, still doing it his way, nowhere near the spotlight. Some guys chase the circus. Izzy Stradlin looked at it once and calmly walked the other way. All right, this next one's going to sting if you were a White Stripes fan. Meg White, one half of one of the most iconic rock duos of the century, and when the band split, she chose the exact opposite path from Jack White. While Jack launched 4 different bands and never stopped working, Meg simply vanished. No interviews, no tours, no public appearances of any kind. Just complete silence. Reports over the years have pointed to anxiety and stage-related stress as the reason, and honestly, that tracks drumming behind one of rock's most scrutinized frontmen is not exactly a relaxing job. Jack White has repeatedly and pointedly defended her legacy whenever critics pile on about her playing. And fair enough, because underneath that stripped-down primal style was something genuinely special. She never attempted a comeback, never cashed in on nostalgia, and lives an intensely private life to this day. Sometimes the loudest statement in rock is choosing not to say anything at all. Here's one for the guitar nerds in the room. Vito Bratta of White Lion, frequently ranked among the most underrated guitarists of the entire 80s. When the band fell apart in the early 90s, everybody assumed he'd resurface fronting some new project within a year or two. That never happened. He disappeared almost overnight, and he's basically stayed gone ever since. The rumors have swirled for decades. A hand injury, burnout, family responsibilities. Take your pick, but Bratta himself has never confirmed much of anything, giving only a small handful of interviews across 30-plus years. Meanwhile, the reunion offers have reportedly kept coming, and every single one has gone absolutely nowhere. Here's the strange part, though. His silence hasn't hurt his reputation one bit. It's actually done the opposite. Every year that passes without a comeback just cements the legend a little further. Sometimes the biggest mystery in rock isn't why somebody failed. It's why an insanely talented guy never once bothered coming back. This next guy quit one of progressive rock's biggest bands to go do something most musicians would consider career suicide. He became a painter. Jeffrey Hammond, bassist for Jethro Tull, played on genuine classics like Aqualung and Thick as a Brick, right at the height of the band's success in the mid-70s, and then he just left. Not for another band, not for a flashy solo career. He went straight back to his original passion, art, and never seriously looked back. Ian Anderson has joked more than once that Hammond never really wanted to be a professional musician in the first place. He sort of fell into it and calmly climbed back out. He rarely appeared in public afterward and never returned to music seriously. Which, honestly, when you think about how many rock stars claw and scratch just to stay relevant, is kind of refreshing. Most musicians dream of making it. Jeffrey Hammond apparently couldn't wait to leave.
and I'm most obliged to you for making.
This next one's a heavier story, so bear with me. Syd Barrett didn't just join Pink Floyd, he founded the thing and wrote a good chunk of their earliest classics. But heavy LSD use and worsening mental health struggles made performing more and more impossible, and by 1968, he was out, right before Pink Floyd became the global icons we know today. He released 2 solo albums, then withdrew almost completely from public life, moving back to Cambridge to quietly paint and garden for decades. He became the direct inspiration behind Shine On You Crazy Diamond, and in one of the strangest moments in rock history, he actually wandered unannounced into Abbey Road during the recording of Wish You Were Here, and the band barely recognized their own former bandmate. He never once tried to capitalize on his legendary status. The man who essentially created Pink Floyd walked away and disappeared before most of the world ever truly knew his name. We're closing tonight with one of rock's great unsolved mysteries. Richey Edwards wasn't just the guitarist for Manic Street Preachers, he was the band's principal lyricist and creative core, responsible for some of their darkest, most acclaimed writing. In the mid-90s, after years of struggling with depression and self-harm, he vanished without a trace, just before a promotional trip to the United States. His car was later found near the Severn Bridge, but his body was never recovered, and he was eventually declared legally dead years afterward. Unlike everyone else on this list, this wasn't a choice we can neatly explain. The band continued on and found real success, but never truly replaced his influence, and to this day, plenty of fans quietly believe he simply chose to disappear and start over. Some rock stars announced their retirement with a press release. Richey Edwards simply vanished, and the world has been wondering what happened ever since. So there you have it. 10 rock legends who walked away at the absolute peak and never once looked back. No slow decline. No shaky farewell tour, just gone. Which honestly takes more guts than staying. Did I miss someone who deserves a spot on this list? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And if classic rock runs through your veins like it does mine, hit subscribe and let's keep this going.